Hi, welcome to video. My name is Amber, and according to my calculations, it's 2025, which is like 2024, but hell. This also means I need to catch up on holiday celebrations. So, Happy New Year, Xbox. And Happy Easter, Xbox. It's been a long 6 months or so, but don't worry, I'm here to make a video about Drawn to Life. Do people know what that is? Maybe I should have stuck to Mario videos. Drawn to Life was a game released for the Nintendo DS back in 2007, developed by Fifth Cell, a company that became even more well known with the release of Scribblenauts years later. It's a game that, at the time, felt like an insanely big one. I would see TV commercials for it all the time, I knew a few people who played it. It just seemed like the game back then. But while it wasn't unpopular, it was nowhere near as big as my younger self thought it to be. I think me being Australian played a role in this. The game reached the 3rd place spot on the Australian sales charts after its release, so it was around to a high extent here. It was still relatively popular around the world, but it's a game that I know a lot of people haven't really experienced. In my case though, it's a game that I really can't imagine myself not experiencing. This was a title that had a pretty large impact on me as a kid, in a few different ways. And even though it's not one that I've returned to often, it's one that will always stick in my mind. I think a lot of avid gamers will have at least one game like this. One that they remember clearly, which they wish more people would have experienced for themselves. One that just feels important, even if it's not their favourite game now. That's essentially where this game sits with me. It's far from my favourite, but one that I would gladly still recommend to people these days, even if I know they won't see it in the same way I did. Because the fact that I was a kid when I first played this game is a big part of why it stuck with me so much. I probably wouldn't be talking about it here if it was a game I first played as a teenager or an adult. The experience was one that was just bound to have an impact on my younger self. To explain why, well, let's just get to it. Upon opening the game, no time is wasted in showing you just how much charm this title can hold. Cheery graphics on the top screen, with a more crayonish drawing on the bottom. That's not a word, but still. Of course, being a game that's focused on creativity and drawing, you get the ability to draw whatever you want on the bottom screen instead of just this default state. The world is your oyster. The best part of this feature is that whatever you draw will persist. When you close and open the game again, your art will still be there. My favourite thing to do here was colour the screen black, and go for a sort of blackboard and chalk vibe by using brighter colours on top. With the screen of your dreams immortalised, we can move on to the meat of the game, the part where we draw things to life. The game begins in a storybook format, telling the tale of the world that we're about to become immersed in. The world started with the creator, who designed everything in the Book of Life, drawing things into existence, like the planet, which we will immediately get to draw. Despite getting a limited palette, it's easy enough to draw whatever planet we want, then forests, then Raposa, the inhabitants of the world. But just as quickly as this part started, it ends, us being told that the creator abandoned this world. We soon see Mari, one of the Raposa, praying to the creator for help, as they're the only hope they have left. And we get to respond, telling Mari that we can create a hero to save her village. She goes to gather the other villagers, calling upon Jowie and the mayor to help her follow our command. So, we are the creator. While we obviously weren't the ones who created this game, we're sort of taking the role of the creator of this world, the only one who can save it. We're essentially their god, something that should help us feel an immediate sense of responsibility towards this world. It's not just a fictional place in a video game, it's one that we have to save. Now, this isn't much different from what you see in other adventure games with similar stakes, but the framing of this from the get-go is something that really helped hook me into this game's story in a strong way. We're watching over this world, a world we created. Why wouldn't we do everything to try and save it? While the mayor has lost his faith, Marie and Jowie head to the creation hall, and with our help, head inside so that we can create a hero to rid the world of darkness, and save the mayor, who has suddenly gotten into danger. With this, we get our first opportunity to, well, actually, let's address a small elephant in the room with this, one that I didn't quite get as a kid. This game is one that has a fairly strong amount of Christian theming to it. We're the creator, basically this world's god, and we're creating a hero to rid the world of darkness. Give me a Jesus, that spells Jesus. The darkness feels like a clear reference to sin, you know, corrupting the world and holding people back and all. Some people may think that this is purely just a similarity in the setup and not a clear reference. But the game's director, Jeremiah Slaska, has confirmed that the biblical elements of this game are intentional, and those elements are clear for those with eyes to see. For example, the first two characters we've met, who we'll be seeing more of still, Mari and Jowie, named in reference to Mary and Joseph. Now, I myself am not religious, nor did I figure out any of this as a kid. But I do think it's worth at least acknowledging this part of the game's world for the purposes of this video, since even though I wouldn't call Drawn to Life a religious game, it is a game with religion at its core. Anyway, in the creation hall we get our first real opportunity to draw something. While we drew in the book at the start, those things won't come up again. Here though, we're drawing the character that we'll be controlling throughout the game, the hero that will save everyone. 1. We can make a total of 3 different heroes, switch between them if we want, and edit them later. While this isn't fully explained, it's nice that you're not locked into your first drawing if you make a mistake of some kind. You also get the benefit of being given guides to go off of for your drawing, or just import one of these guides as your hero. For me though, I've always loved having the ability to draw my own character here, so I would always draw whatever I thought of in the moment. Whether that be a mess of coloured scribbles that almost looks like a Technicolor mummy, or a cupcake controlling a robot. As an adult who was recording this, I simply just went with a representation of myself. The colours aren't perfect, and there isn't room for a lot of details, but it's nice to be able to put yourself in the game, so you can run around this world, my head is backwards. How the fuck did I draw it backwards? Whatever, I'm rolling with it. Anyway, after finding a hidden reposer, we encounter Wilfrey, the villain of the game, the one who enveloped this world in darkness, who closes off the entrance, preventing us from leaving. But luckily, there's a gateway to the rest of the world, where we'll enter our first platforming level, specifically a tutorial one. This stage is a simple introduction to what will take up most of our time in the game ahead, and gives us a look at the general gameplay loop, progress through the stage, encounter sections with dark goo that we'll have to scrub away, and of course, stay alive. At certain points in these levels, you may encounter dotted lines around areas, which signify objects that will be important shortly after, once we find an easel to draw them on. Every easel we find gives us a small idea of what it wants us to draw, and lets us understand what each thing will do. Every level contains at least one of these, meaning we'll have plenty of opportunities to let our creative juices flow, and bring this world to life again. We start simple with the cloud, which is a platform that we can easily jump up on. A new drawing is used to progress, and at the end of the stage we find the mayor, locked in a dark cage for us to break apart. Once he's out, we return to the village to show that he's safe, and oh come on. Before we get to start on our first full level, we get to draw a ranged weapon to use, so we don't have to rely purely on jumps to take down our foes. Thank goodness, to be honest, that would have been weird. With our snowshooter prepared, we can head into our first level, and begin the full gameplay loop. Enter a level, collect 4 torn pieces of a page from the Book of Life/Bible, save some villagers, scrub the area clean, and maybe find some hidden collectibles. We don't have to fully complete everything to beat a level, but a fair bit of that will be important. The levels are quite big, each having a few different areas and several branching paths with secrets to discover. These levels are fun enough on their own, but being able to draw creations and see them as you progress, sometimes seeing new and old creations alongside each other, it just makes the game feel like your own. Now, there's an interesting topic to discuss as we enter our first real level, throughout which we'll get more chances to draw things, and even a place to edit our original cloud drawing if we choose. When I was a kid, looking at the easels made me ponder my options a little, and realize one thing that I've always found interesting with them. It's the fact that we don't have to draw what we're told to. We can draw a cloud, and the game places them with the knowledge that most probably would be drawing clouds, but we can do anything we want. Instead of a cloud, we can jump across hamburgers, or steaks, or eclairs. I'm hungry, shut up. Hell, we can even draw just a red rectangle, or even a mess of scribbles if we want to be immature. Now, this won't apply all the time. Some easels get you to draw things that are sort of limiting. Vehicles, for example, tend to come in a template form, where you're just colouring in an image, because they've programmed for the hero to look a certain way when interacting with it. Others are in restricting shapes, like the goo platforms, which is basically the shape you'd expect anyway. In some of these cases, it probably is better to draw what is suggested, because they're more intuitive by design, but the choice is still up to you. You just need to remember what a penis does, for example. Oh right, they play music, duh. The first time I had this thought was actually in the second main level of the game. When told to draw a spring platform to bounce up higher, I looked at my colour palette and the size of the box, and thought, I don't have enough room for the spring I'd want to draw. I wanted to draw something a bit better, so I drew a mushroom. When I went back into the platforming section, it worked perfectly. While I'm sure that this is pretty obvious, it's not like the game can punish you for drawing something different, it's a realization that was surprising to me as a kid. See, I know that, at least for me, it was easy to feel like people were putting you in boxes to an extent during younger years. A lot of schoolwork wasn't going to reward creativity. They just wanted you to do the one thing in a specific way, and if you did anything different, it was incorrect by default. Was there room for creativity? Sometimes, yes, but because you were a kid and didn't have experience with the world, you were more likely to be controlled by the adults around you. And some of those adults were the worst. Try to do something a little different? No, you can't do that. Try to push yourself further? Sometimes you receive praise, and sometimes they'd be annoyed that you even tried at all. Obviously some of these restrictions are here for good reason. It's not a good idea to have ice cream for every meal, or never get any sleep, but in terms of self-expression, being restricted can have a massive impact. In my case, being autistic definitely did not help. At a lot of points it felt harder to understand why things were the way that they were, why I wasn't allowed to have control over some of the things I did, why it wasn't okay to express myself most of the time. And as I got older, I remember being told something by a teacher that genuinely hurt to hear at the time. And it was, "You're not being creative enough." This was during an art class. I was trying to come up with some cool ideas, but apparently I wasn't doing that well enough. Looking back, I can barely remember what I did for that assignment, but I know that it felt just as limiting as plenty of the other things we did at school during that time frame. If I wasn't being creative enough, it was because it was becoming harder to do that. Despite being the unique and kind of weird person that I was being discouraged so much that when the goal was to be creative, apparently I just wasn't able to do that anymore. But back to Drawn to Life, the lack of limits was part of the fun. Having this outlet to be expressive and unique, the game never making you feel bad for being too expressive or not expressive enough. It was a world where the game you drew into existence was your own, without judgment. I'm never gonna look back at a playthrough of Drawn to Life and think, oh, I could have done this better, or take issue with how other people are experiencing this game. You get to do what you want, make the world that you want. That's the fun of it. That's a big part of what made it so unique. Of course, there's more to the game than just drawing things in levels. I've already talked about the basic loop and what you'll encounter, but things are a lot more involved than this. Let's have a look at what we're required to get in each level. The 4 page pieces, and one of the 3 trapped NPCs. The other things aren't needed, but good to deal with for the sake of completion. You can also see that they're required thanks to the levels blocking your progress if you try to leave an area without collecting them first. At a level's end, you'll find this door that gets unlocked by the page pieces you found, and then both you and the NPCs you rescued return to the village to meet those within it. This is where we'll see the other main mode of the game. Like in the beginning section, we can explore this village, interact with NPCs, and just hang around before heading to the next level. While this seems boring at first, as we progress through the game, finding more characters to populate the village, there will be a lot more to do, as we begin to see after our first level. Returning to meet everyone, they tell us more about Wilfrey, how he used to be a big shot, but then he tried to do something forbidden, messing with the creator's design, through which he was corrupted by darkness and turned on the town, tearing apart the Book of Life, shadows trapping those within. So he was playing God. Like I said, the religious aspects are there. To restore life to the village, we have to travel through distant lands, looking for all of the discarded pages of the book, so order can be restored to this world. And this has already begun. Our first full page gets placed back into the Book of Life, and luckily, it's just what this village needs to get back to its former glory. The village pedestal, which holds the eternal flame. This is the centerpiece of the village we have so far, so you want to make it look pretty. Though, like everything else, you have plenty of room to edit it later in the creation hall. As a kid, I thought it was meant to be a turtle. Once we choose what color we want the flame to be, we can see what this pedestal does. Okay, so it's that. At some point after each level, we'll be told to tap the Eternal Flame, and we'll get to clear a section of the darkness from the village, giving us more space to explore, and a new feature of the village to interact with, even if just for a few moments before the next level. The first one is the main one we'd interact with. It's a shop where we can buy patterns to draw with, music, and new abilities once we find some of the secret collectibles. The other landmarks we'll find tend to be a bit more static, but they'll make this village feel more real and bustling. After this, and usually talking to people to further the story a bit, we'll get prompted to head to the next level, with an idea of what page we'll be discovering, and head to the gate to find this new stage. With the gameplay loop fully established, let's go a little more in depth on these village sections. In the beginning of the game, they tend to be a bit more substantial, yet not long. Us bringing back the NPCs to the town, being welcomed back, and seeing a few different character interactions, starting with the mayor greeting the returnees. We'll get to draw something new, and open up a new area of town, and see just how much the village has grown. After the second level, we even get to name the place. Anvil, not to be confused with Anvil. As the village's population grows, we'll see ourselves interacting with more things between each level, really hammering in how things are changing for the better. The sun comes back, the snow over the village begins to melt, things feel bright and cheery, plants are blooming, as long as we draw them blooming. The town chef returns, we get forced into a 9 versus 1 snowball fight. No, it's not fair at all, I agree. We bring back rain to the village. I didn't mean to choose the piss color, god damn it. With our progress well underway, Wolfray returns to taunt us, and awakens Frostwind, a dragon that poses great danger. Yep, the game has boss fights too. We get chased into an arena with another NPC, a young girl trapped in the cage above, and have to take down the dragon. These fights tend to be simple in theory, though they can be difficult if you aren't careful enough. Beating a boss saves the NPC and unlocks a whole new area of the village, where we'll find another world gate, and clear more darkness. Like I said, the town is bustling more and more with every stage cleared. It feels more like a home, because it is one. We're bringing life back to this place which was so desolate before. I know I keep saying this, but every step in this journey is a big one, and it feels important. With more characters around, we see them all interacting, recognizing each other, forming a community, and sometimes arguing. Mari and Jowie, being two of the main NPCs, have this dynamic of friendship and caring, but we see them argue quite a lot, especially with Jowie's obsession with adventure, his drive to be like the hero we created, to the point where he gets lost in the Twilight Forest, like in Minecraft. Zasha is a thief who ends up stealing things from the other Reposer, and there's tension that comes from the inability to search without any light. Policeman Cricket returns to try and solve the case, and time returns to the town. Eventually we see a storyline start to play out with Mari and the mayor. Mari is his daughter, and is meant to lead the town when he can't anymore, but she doesn't feel like she's capable of being in charge. Oh, for fuck's sake. Hi, Wolfray. It's boss time again. We take on this massive tree and return Samuel. Now we can head to the northern region of the village and see the coastline. We get flippers for a beach-themed world, which contains water sections. And they're annoying. Like, just straight up, these sections suck. The enemies down here are harder to manage because they just sort of appear at you. On the bright side, this will end up drawing beach toys, secret trees for a secret beach, a statue that can be of us. See how we're not adding in just the basics anymore? We've progressed past the point of they need food and water and time doesn't. We can help them with emotional needs, keeping spirits up. This isn't a shift that is acknowledged, but it's something that's genuinely nice to see in how the game is. We're seeing the effects of the changes we make in this world clearly. Once we rescue this pirate and set up a lighthouse, it's boss time once more, taking down the Angler King to save a vampire. The new characters around this point start to get a bit wacky. Looking at how much the world changes as we play through it is something that really reminds me of what it was like to play this game as a child as well. Like I talked about earlier, you don't exactly have the most control when you're young. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. So playing a game like this, where there were no wrong answers, where I could do anything I wanted, it felt important. It made me look forward to the future, to a world where I had more control over what I could do. I'm still waiting. We're in a world where we don't really get a say in a lot of things, because there are so many people with unbelievable amounts of influence over everything, where things can go wrong in an instant, where you can fall down a downward spiral and struggle to claw your way back up. It's a world where the choices of people in a completely different continent can lead to a domino effect where everything fucks up everyone. I started working on this video at the start of November of last year, if it wasn't clear already. So often it can feel like a world where you're not safe, where you have to be worried about your every action because what if the butterfly effect? Factors out of your control can mess up everything for you. That's a scary world to live in, and it's not the one you thought you'd be living in as a kid. But this isn't the first time the world has been like this. There have been wars and recessions and tyrants and reasons to be terrified all throughout history. Hell, it's not unlikely that things like this have been made clear to you in your childhood already, even if others would have been more unaware of the state of things. For a lot of us who expected the world to become more free and fun as we got older, it's a gut punch not to experience that. It feels like we were misled, and in some ways we might have been with how radically things can change all the time. But at the same time, some of that is just us learning more about the world as we grow up. It's the same world, we just know more about it now. See more that we weren't going to be seeing when we were young, because we would have been shielded from some of these things. I know that a lot of this can sound kind of grim, and that also this perspective is coming from a place of privilege. There are plenty of people who wouldn't have been able to feel protected and secure in their younger years. The main point I'm leading to is that this game reminds me of that time, of having hope for the future and feeling like I had the ability to make things better for myself and those around me. Having that reminder takes me back to that time, and helps current me remember that this is the same world. I can still hold on to this hope and believe that things can get better, that I'm not fully powerless against every obstacle that there is. That is a big part of why this game is so special to me, being able to look back and see how much it delighted me, and seeing that spark of wonder that you want kids to hold on to for as long as possible. Even in a world that is tough to manage, holding on to hope is something that we still can do. things don't have to be hopeless. Now, to an extent, this topic does lead into nostalgia, which is something else that's interesting to discuss. Nostalgia is something that many of us would know well, having pleasant memories of the past and looking back on those times very fondly. I have nostalgia for Super Mario World on the Nintendo Super SNES, because I have a lot of great memories of the times when I would play that game. It's sentimental to me. But nostalgia isn't always good. It's not an uncommon idea that someone a bit older may express the thought of, oh, things were better back in my day, or things were simpler back then, before saying something very overtly racist or sexist. That's bad. Like, that's just bad. Nostalgia can easily be bad just as much as it is pleasant, and it really depends on a few factors. For one, nostalgia that takes the form of, I want to go back to the past I remember, probably isn't the most healthy. It's more on the side of escapism, and while the idea of people looking back fondly isn't bad by itself, people may be looking back with rose-tinted glasses, only remembering what they want to, and wishing that they could go back to this half-invented world that never actually existed. Then there's also people using nostalgia for political gain, like you may have knowledge of what's been going on in the USA politically for the last 10 years. If you've used the internet enough, then you almost certainly do, to be honest. There's a certain shitty slogan that appeals to nostalgia that you can see all across the nation, emblazoned across red caps. Not this one. So while nostalgia can be nice, it can be hell sometimes. And I think about this a lot as someone who's made quite a few videos now, all about games that I've had very fond memories of, mostly throughout my childhood. I make sure to keep my nostalgia on the side of looking back at something and thinking that was nice, and use it to reflect on the past rather than longing for it, using these fond memories to help me in the present rather than ignoring the present. Back to the game though, Choco the Vampire provides a new page for us. The Karen Berry Bush, or something. We plant them and get told that they could be dangerous, so obviously we need to eat them. Apparently Karen berries will make us twice as big for some amount of time, which is imperative for the next world. Thanks, I think? We unlock the final quadrant of the village, and while looking around, we see Wolfray going through a village gate, one that's devoid of colour, so we can't interact with it. The only way through will be to continue filling out the Book of Life. Another gate leads us to Rappo City, a level that big. As a gimmick, it is one, but it helps hammer in that feeling of danger that the game wants us to be feeling here. The enemies we're used to seeing are small, so then the ones that are our size feel doubly imposing with the knowledge of how tough they'd be in a normal stage. The things we draw in levels also get a little more ridiculous. Trees that bounce us far away, houses that we can bounce on like springs. They help add to this endgame atmosphere. Everything seems a bit weird as well as the levels getting harder. Another example is Mike, a straight up human that we rescue, who doesn't know what's going on here at all. We see Joey talking to the pirates, possibly wanting to leave for his own adventure with them. Meanwhile, Mari is feeling the pressure of having to become the mayor someday. Moving along, the next level leads to us finding the blueprints for a legendary sword that will help us take down Wolfray once and for all. When we return, we can draw that very sword. It's our final weapon, the most important one. But before we can use it against our final boss, the mayor wants us to retrieve one final page. One that won't lead to us drawing something, rather it's to commemorate Mari as the new mayor, for her to sign her name. Something that she's still not ready to do. She's a kid that's dealing with the fears of having a lot of responsibility on her shoulders, not feeling ready at all. What if she's not good enough? What if no one listened to her? As we head into our final level, we see a cutscene. Wolfray appears to confront the mayor and put a stop to things by killing him. This is hell. We see how Mari just isn't ready for any of this. But she has no choice now. Her father is gone and someone has to step up. And she's the only one who will be able to. But we can't worry too much about that yet. We have another stage to go through. With our sword, we can fight our way through a stage that is completely full of shadow enemies, no longer smaller than us. It's a massive level, with a lot of different branching paths and secrets that can make it difficult to find everything. Even now, I found myself having some amount of trouble with it. But as a kid, oh boy. In fact, a lot of the game gave me difficulty as a child, because I just wasn't that good at games back then. Despite the difficulties, I did love this game, which brought about interesting feelings when I got to points I struggled with. The World 2 boss was the first example of this. I couldn't get past phase 1 no matter how many times I tried. It was at least a good few days before I managed to figure it out. And a few days are like a year for a kid having trouble in a video game. I didn't give up though. I wanted to save the village that I'd become attached to. I helped create it after all. When I did eventually beat the boss and enter World 3, I had more troubles. I couldn't figure out where to go in the first level. I got to the end of an area and wasn't able to progress. I searched as much as I could without any luck and eventually just closed the game. For a while actually. It had to have been a few weeks before I opened it up again. But one thing I remember thinking about was that my town was still there. in my Nintendo DS, waiting for me to come back and save them from Wolfrey. I wasn't mistaking it for reality or anything, I just felt that with a game like this, the world needed to be saved, and I was the only one who could save it. It was my game. It was weird to think about the village basically being in stasis like this, but that got weirder once I started to make progress again. I beat World 3, got through World 4, struggled with this last level, but after a while, I managed to beat it. Although I was missing one of the villages. Oops. Heading back into town, everyone starts to notice that the mayor is gone, so we get told to find him. And we, being the creator, already know exactly where he is. And it's too late to help him. Even with the doctor back in town, Jerry runs off to tell Mari, and she's having the most reasonable reaction, that's her fucking dad. And also she's still not ready to take control. Can it get worse than this? Yeah, all of those creations we made start to vanish with the Book of Life gone. Mari suddenly feels a sense of urgency she needs to take charge, and goes to gather everyone. Meanwhile, we get ready for our last hurrah. Before we get into that though, I do want to at least acknowledge one cool part of this game. If we pay enough money to the villagers wishing well, we can access the secret area, where the team behind the game has put nice little messages for the player to discover. This is a really fun detail, and not one I've really seen in video games I've played since. There are small bouts of developer acknowledgement, like in Mario games when they say you are a super player at the end, but nothing quite like all of the team surrounding you and saying congratulations. At least in more popular games like this. Jeremiah even taunts us with the idea of a secret flower in Wolfrey's lair that can save the mayor. It's not real. With that diversion done, we go through this deep, dark final stage, see tons of things we've created throughout our journey, reminding us of the steps we took to get here, knowing that the end is near. We can save everyone, but then what? We're close to the end of the game, but once we've completed it, what do? We can collect some of the things we may have missed, maybe farm coins to buy more things at the shop, or replay our favourite levels again, but that won't last forever. This game, while important to me, is a fairly self-contained one. It's not a game with infinite replay value or multiplayer potential, and while there's nothing at all wrong with that, in fact a lot of my favourite games have this quality too, this brings me back to what I thought about when I had struggles with the game. This last level and boss battle was super difficult to me as a kid. I must have been trying to beat the game for weeks, maybe even months by the time I got to the end. I wasn't playing constantly, but this whole time I was still super invested in this battle, knowing that with enough tries, I would win. But then when I beat the game, I didn't have anything else to do. I could move on to other games, but that felt weird. I'd been so connected to this world and this journey, and now it was ending. I was just leaving the village as it was, in stasis forever. Sure, everything was better now, but I wasn't interacting with the game. I was no longer there, watching over everything. I quickly thought about the fact that this is the case with basically any game. But once with stories and characters at the forefront, the ones we can personify, are bound to hit harder when we eventually say goodbye to them. When your save file corrupts in the RPG you put nearly 100 hours into, when you die in the Minecraft hardcore world that you've had for as long as you can remember, or when you realize that you've gotten to the end of a game that absolutely enchanted you. Sure, you can start again from scratch, but you'll always remember those first playthroughs. They can feel so much more special. I'm sure that if I still had my first save file of Drawn to Life, I could look back at it now and reminisce. But at some point that save became lost, so I just have vague memories of that time. And enough knowledge of my younger self today to have a guess at what it mostly looked like. Anyway, back to the game we're about to say goodbye to. The level leading up to the boss is very linear and lengthy, but when we get to the end, we find Wolfrey, who is taking control of a giant scorpion to destroy us. God, I hate this fight. The scorpion hits hard, and we're mostly just playing defense and waiting for our chance to make a hit. And after a few hits, Wolfrey will take center stage, throwing stars and tridents at us while we just have to keep swinging our sword. Eventually we'll find success, destroying him and restoring life to the village once and for all. Until the sequel, probably. Mari takes the book and offers us the chance to sign our name in it, since we're basically responsible for saving everyone, and she's not quite ready yet. Which is a nice gesture, and really caps off this feeling of accomplishment you get from saving the village from the turmoil that almost tore it apart. As the game starts to end, we see villagers' arcs closing. Heather, who had previously been fully mute, starts learning to talk. Zasha is revealed to be stealing things to help out a young child. Mike continues to confuse everyone else. We can speak to whoever we want, or head up to the secret beach. This is the end of Mari and Joey's story. Mari encourages him to go adventure alone, like he wants, or she feels too connected to the village to leave. We see a montage of all that's happened to lead us here, and Mari tried to deal with all that's changed around her, and more than anything else, missing Joey. But I guess he decided to stay. The credits roll, and that's all. That's the whole game done. We can close it forever, saying goodbye to this journey. That's pretty much all I have to say about Drawn to Life, but I still have a bit more to say for this video, because my feelings on this game can't just be explained by the game itself. There's another Drawn to Life game I played as a kid. Not the sequel, but the SpongeBob version. Now, it's kind of weird to think about the fact that there's a SpongeBob version of this game. Nothing screamed there should be a cartoon spin-off version of this, but looking back, it did make sense to me at the time. Making a SpongeBob version of an already existing title was something that was kinda common at the time, at least with the PC games. Quite a few titles released through an old service called Nick Arcade were basically just reskins of already existing PC games, made in conjunction with the original creators. SpongeBob Obstacle Odyssey was a reskin of Best Friends, a game about penguins. SpongeBob Diner Dash was a reskin of Diner Dash, a game not about penguins. SpongeBob Krabby Quest was not quite a reskin, but was modelled around the Wonderland series, also not about penguins. I was familiar with all of those other titles before finding out about the SpongeBob versions, on account of me being a kid when they were around. So I was just used to seeing SpongeBob games that just were other games. I can't say I minded though, I was obsessed with SpongeBob at the time, and could only get the free trials of most PC games, and usually the SpongeBob ones let you play a bit more. So imagine how composed I was when I found out that this game I loved was getting a SpongeBob version. Yep, not composed at all. Of course, I played it as soon as I could, and I loved it. I got to draw my younger self into one of my favourite fictional worlds. I got to say Bikini Bottom from Doodle Bob, like in the show. And this time, things were a fair bit different. You still got to draw things in each level, but when it came to drawing things in the hub, you get small art quests to complete. Also, when defeating the equivalent of shadow enemies, you got to draw a friendly critter for them to turn into, which made it kind of fun to encounter new ones. There were also clear power-ups that came in handy for certain levels, though those power-ups only really appeared when they were necessary. It was all fairly par for the course, I suppose. It looked and felt like a SpongeBob game, but also a drawn-to-life game. I was having fun getting through the first world, which was pretty varied. There was a carnival level that I remembered thinking was neat, a dark factory that I had very clear memories of even going back years later, and then it was boss time. Except the game sort of died there. I tried reopening it and playing again, but I still couldn't actually get to the boss. Young me had no idea what was going on, but as an adult who was able to do some research, it was probably an anti-piracy thing. And I don't even really remember where I got the game, so I could fully believe that it was just a pirated version that I ended up with. So being a kid, I still wanted to play the game, so I basically just kept replaying the first few levels, over and over and over, until eventually I was able to get the game again from a local game store for a low price. And I took the chance, asked my parents to buy me the game because they knew I was having trouble with the copy I had, and it worked. I was able to get past World 1. But I didn't make it much further than that. I had played the first part of that game so many times that by the time I was able to access more of it, I was kind of burnt out. I didn't feel a drive to keep playing, so I set it down for a while, thinking, I'll get back to this later. 15 years pass. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little. Evidently I must have played it a little bit more at some point in 2012 for about an hour or so, because there was no chance of me drawing my character as a Gardevoir in the years before I'd even played Pokemon. Even still, I didn't come back to it until after I replayed Drawn to Life last year. I figured that it would be nice to talk about the SpongeBob version of the game in this video a little bit, because it's sort of an interesting story, getting to finally complete a game that I never got to after 15 years. Except, I didn't finish it. I got to around the end of World 2, and I thought to myself, this game is not good. It's not the worst game I've ever played, that's already been heavily catalogued, but unsurprisingly, it doesn't really hold a candle to the game it's based on. Now, I phrase that carefully because it's not really a reskin of Drawn to Life. It was developed by Outrun, who are not 5th Cell. The 5th Cell team decided not to take on the project when approached, but would have given permission for the basis of their IP to be used for this title. This difference means that things feel very different from the get-go. The player template shape feels weird, but more importantly, the drawing tool in this game isn't that good. Each color palette only has 15 options, and the default one is very oversaturated. My hair isn't usually red. The others tend to mostly be, this is a color palette for a specific character, rather than this is a color palette. There's some unlockable ones have a little more variety, and oh god, it's saturated again. The character choices for these palettes are odd too. Like we've got Harold, and Jim. Who the fuck is Tom? What? Incidental 41? Wait, they never named this fucking fish? He's in over 200 episodes and he doesn't have a name? The graphics are 3D. That's something I hadn't previously appreciated about Drawn to Life. It being a game focused on pixel art meant that your pixelized drawings felt more fitting in that world. Your palette was limited, so you could still tell what was yours and what was the game's without things feeling off, but it still felt right. Here, when everything you draw is 2D pixel art, but everything else is made up of 3D models, nothing feels quite like it belongs, including you, the player. The sound effects are not Patrick. Even as a kid, I felt weird about that detail. The levels are basic. There's some room for secrets, but they aren't really made for that. It's just get from point A to point B, maybe collect some fun things if you want. The time you spend in town feels less important. The only thing stopping you from moving immediately from level to level is if you'd like to go to the large empty area that takes forever to walk through. And sometimes there's something interesting, I guess. There's also a timer within the levels, so the game kind of encourages you to get through quickly, which feels odd when compared to the original. The drawing a happy creature after defeating a new enemy thing gets tiresome quick. It just kind of felt like a way of adding in more drawing opportunities without much substance. The game's difficulty ramps up quite a lot more than you probably expect, but at least the game gives you lives a little more than Drawn to Life would. Wait, what the hell is... Oh my this is inexcusable. The maximum life count is 9? That's so low for a maximum. This isn't an arcade game either, it was 2008. That's absurdly low for any point in time, but for it to be that recent and have that flaw, what the hell? I think the idea is that people can just buy more lives if they run out, but why is that such a low limit? I want to use my coins for other things too, like drawing SpongeBob and other mediocre color palettes. So, all in all, this game isn't that good. At least to me. But obviously I enjoyed it a lot as a kid, to the point where I had to take a break eventually. So why was I fine with it then, but not now? Well, I've kind of already answered that question. Being a kid with a sense of wonder, I was amazed to see a SpongeBob game where I could be creative, like in Drawn to Life. Even with the roadblocks stopping me from experiencing much of it, I was still so happy to be in Bikini Bottom, doing whatever I wanted. I wasn't being limited, I was free to express myself in a world that I had loved for so long. Without the thought of, does a snowman being in this underwater world really fit, holding me back? It was another outlet for me to be the kid that I was. But then I got older, and this is the interesting thing. How does that sentence end? And I lost the sense of wonder in my life. And I realized that the world was bad and it was impossible to enjoy things. And I began to hate fun. None of those. All that really happened was that my standards got higher. I want more from a gaming experience than SpongeBob Drawn to Life can really provide, because it doesn't provide that much. While I could go on about depression and loss and learning how to move past the past, I don't feel like I have any reason to with this game. It's just an example of how kids are born with rose-colored glasses, and eventually we take them off, some sooner than others. I look back and see a game that I used to care about, but I don't think I should be the person I was back then again, because I've changed a lot since then, for the better. My favourite colour was red, I had no skills beyond things like mathematics. I had to deal with surgeries, my name wasn't even Amber yet. So I hope I'm not the only person who looks back at their childhood, remembers the good times, and rather than romanticize the core idea of being younger, think about how growing up helped you to become the person that you are today. Especially because that's a hell of a lot better than going through each day thinking that the peak of your life was when you were 10 years old. I know this video is a bit of everything, admittedly. There are a lot of topics that come to mind when I think about Drawn to Life. There is one last major thing though, and this time it is the sequel to Drawn to Life, subtitled The Next Chapter, which came out in 2009, both on the Wii and DS. Truthfully, I never played it when it came out. I saw commercials for it, but they only ever showed off the Wii version, so I didn't know the DS one even existed. And I didn't even have a Wii until Christmas that year, so I quickly forgot about it. As it turns out, the two versions of it have not much in common anyway, the DS version being very reminiscent of the original title. I had heard very little about this DS version until the late 2010s, when friends of mine mentioned playing this game, and actually spoiler tagged the discussion, because evidently there was a lot to this game. Back in either 2020 or 2021, I finally started playing the sequel. Yeah, it took me long enough. But I stopped playing kinda quickly. For no real reason, I just kinda got busy with stuff, what with the pandemic and all. But once I decided to make this video, I felt like it would be worth finally playing this game in full, to at least understand what I've been missing out on for 15 years. And safe to say, I understand now. The game starts off on a dark screen, an unknown voice calling on us as the creator to return, before we get asked questions about that day. Whatever that is. All we know about it so far is that it sounds grim. We get a scrambled message of sorts, before an opening cutscene, showing Heather on a bright and sunny day, seeing Wilfrey return to bring darkness back into the world again. But luckily it's just a dream. Into the proper game now, she wanders into the night, guided by a pendant. That morning, she's still missing, but everything is going wrong at once. Ari calls upon us to give her a new hero. Oh no. Never mind. Color is draining from the world around them. Wolfrey is back, trying to doom the world into non-existence so he can win, sending the villagers to distant lands and taking Heather with him. All she can manage to say is Kawakemi. To be fair, she hasn't been the best at talking so far. The few remaining villagers are forced to abandon their home in hopes of restoring order, luckily being granted a vessel to escape on. Big turtle. See, I was right, there is a turtle in this series. From here, we can properly summon a hero, who is me for the third time, and start exploring the new village. The levels in this game are a fair bit smaller than the main levels from the first game, with a little less branching, next to no special collectibles, and no pages to collect. The end of each level simply grants us color droplets, which we can use to advance the game further on as we go. Not every level will be required, but the majority of them are still really cool, so I went through them all anyway. Despite the greater amount of levels, the drawing mechanic feels like it took a slight backseat. This is mostly because we can't draw too much in the overworlds, which makes it so they don't quite feel like arts. Which only makes sense because they aren't. We're tourists looking for a way to save everyone. That being said though, there's a large variety of stuff we'll get to create. Even the health regen items are ones we get to draw ourselves. I just violated the Geneva Convention, god fucking damn it. We get a choice of 3 weapons this time: shooter, slasher, and slinger. I have this newspaper, so obviously that means I chose shooter. There are also special rooms where we need to draw quick platforms in a given area to progress, which is an interesting twist that's fun to experience. As we progress, we'll be given alternate forms to transform into, which we too have to draw. It's me, Amber the Blob. In a lot of ways, it's a fitting sequel, building upon the first game well, but it's definitely a much different experience. With the game a little more freeing, the gameplay loop is a lot more fluid. Us travelling to distant lands using the turtle, hoping to restore colour and find our missing friends, and eventually beat Wolfrey. Each area has its own small story, each one linking back to Wolfrey in some way, and showing that he's even more devious and powerful than he was last time, using powers of disguise to mess with everyone's heads. And we're the only ones who can stop him. After doing enough within a world, and bringing back plenty of colour, we can take on that world's boss, similar to the first game, before we get to move on. Unlike the first game, it was harder to feel that strong connection to this game's world, since we're experiencing it a little at a time, and most of the characters we encounter in these new places don't really have an impact. Going into a very established world and restoring order doesn't really have the biggest impact, especially since we leave these worlds just a few moments after we fix everything. So that big impact that I felt strongly in the first game isn't quite there here. But I don't consider that to be an issue, because it would be hard to really match that impact without doing the exact same thing again, and it's very clear that they were going for something different here. Despite this, the story beats aren't bad. It's just the separate nature that affects my view of this element. The first world is ruled by someone whose singing voice was stolen by Wolfrey, and this is important because this is a very symphonic city. I'll be honest though, this part of the story was probably my least favourite. We move on to these underground lava mines, where everyone is forced into work by the land's dictator. The levels here are some of my favourites. Something about the mix of fire and factory just works. Once again, Wolfrey is behind everything, and the world's boss is definitely one of the things ever. Afterwards we head to Galactic Jungle. It's very much both of those things. There are robots enforcing too many laws, including a law against ever being sick. But more important than that, Mari has fallen to Wolfrey's influence, destroying the Book of Life to help his plans. Now, this is a big mystery. Why would she turn against the village all of a sudden? We also get reminded of the game's opening, someone asking us for help, but they don't seem to be involved with the village at all. Making our way through the third area, we eventually create a rocket to take down the boss, and find out that, once again, people are listening to the Satan XP. Hey, stop doing that maybe? I had a lot of moments of, really? During this section.
Why? He tried to kill people when they sneezed.
As we head towards the last world, the pendant guarding us gets stolen by Wolfrey in disguise. Dude, can you chill a little? Luckily, we're able to give Jowie a pep talk and a Twin Peaks dream sequence, so we can eventually find our way to the final world, a corrupt mishmash of the places we've been before, with some final levels to fight through the win. We find Mari again, and she's fully on Wolfrey's side. Clearly he knows something. If only Mari would give us any information. We can't lose hope though. The mayor is here to guide us. He died, right? He's dead. But he's not. Anyway, we make our way through these first 6 levels, reminiscent of the world's past, and unlock the main part of Wolfrey's lair, all ready to save the world again. And Jowie has learned things. And things involve Mike? Mike? I was sitting here trying to understand and coming up empty, reading into every line to get any information, but more importantly, Jowie is still on the side of good, wanting to defeat Wolfrey and doing what's right rather than what he wants, as does Mari. Eventually, we head through Wilfrey's final 2 stages. They're hard. Wilfrey confronts us outside again, saying that if we defeat him, everyone dies. But weirder than that, Mari and Jowie confirmed this to be true, and I flipped. Because I was immediately reminded of that stray thought I had when I was a kid, that when you beat the game, the world within it won't continue on. You complete the story and don't have a reason to come back and play the game again. Saving this world is the right thing to do, even if we finish the story and let it go. If we complete the game, their place in the world is gone, because the creator will be closing the Nintendo DS. And if I was right, then thank God I didn't play this game as a kid. That would have fucked me up. As for Mike, well, he's human, so I was thinking maybe he's like a stand-in for the player. With that theory all but confirmed in my mind, it was time to face Wilfrey in a lengthy final stage and massive final fight, where the worlds we've saved come together to pray for the hero to succeed, giving us power to take down his cloud thing. It's not as hard as the Scorpion from the first game, at least. With him defeated, Heather is free and cured of her corruption. She can even speak. We all head back to the village, ready for the end that Wilfrey spoke of. And I was ready, presumably. Everyone vanishes, except Mike. The world vanishes, except Mike. We see our drawing from the start, the dialogue, and Mike. And Heather. The one talking to us at the start was Heather, but instead of the slight jumble, we get God, just bring back my little brother to me. They haven't said God before, because we're no longer in the Raposa world. This is the real world. The truth behind technically both games is revealed. Mike and Heather are both humans, who got into a terrible accident with their parents, who didn't make it. Mike fell into a coma, and Heather ended up with a lot of damage to half of her face. These 2 games actually took place within the world of Mike's coma. Everything we did to save the Raposa was actually to save Mike, so that he wouldn't die. They took the slightly jokey character and turned him into the most important one, and for one, now I'm really glad that I didn't play this as a kid. I wouldn't have understood what was going on, and also, it's dark. But also, somehow it makes things feel even more impactful. We're still saving a fictional world, but there's something that really hits about the idea of our actions in a fictional world helping someone in the real world, even if that world is real. Now, I do want to quickly acknowledge the most recent entry in the series, Drawn to Life 2 Realms. It exists. It's made by a different team and seems to not quite be what the previous games were, like at all. So I wasn't too compelled to add it to the list for this video, especially after how this game ended. That felt like a pretty good closing point for the series to me. It's hard for me to really put into words how this ending made me feel, especially knowing that it wasn't planned during the first game. They weren't even thinking about a sequel back then. But it does remind me of that feeling I got from the first game. The fact that the village mattered to me was good, because at least within the game's world, it mattered a lot more than I thought it did. My attempts to get through the story weren't just for my own good, or the Raposa's, but to save a child who shouldn't have to go so soon. So all in all, there are a few reasons why Drawn to Life is a game that I'll never forget. From the experience I got through my childhood, being able to express myself when I felt like that was discouraged, to me being able to see the hope I hold for the future and hold on to it, instead of seeing it as something bygone. I'm here knowing that things have improved, even in a world that is a lot right now. This video took like 6 months to make, and it's not like it took that long once I actually started writing the script. There was just so much going on all around me that it felt tough to work on a video that was close to my heart like this. One about staying strong and hopeful in a time where that shit is not easy. But the important thing is, even if it took ages, I did finally get to express how this game made me feel, and what it was like to experience it throughout my life. It's a game that, to be honest, I'm glad I could have in my mind again during the last 6 months. It definitely helped, at least a little. That's enough from me anyway. Thank you all for watching me ramble for close to an hour about a gimmicky but fun DS series. I should go anyway. According to the comment section, I need to go draw someone who asked. See ya!